Hello everyone, how are you? Welcome to Real PR with me, Fiona Scott. It's brilliant to see you, although I can't actually see you, on this lovely day in the UK. It's a beautiful sunny afternoon, well up into the 20s, which may explain or will explain why my background has changed and has got quite dull. I haven't got my yellow thinking chair purely because the sun will be right in my eyes. So I've moved to a slightly duller place, which means the conversation must be truly sparkling today. So if you're joining us at any point, please put any comments, ask any questions, and we'll answer them as we go. I am joined today by a lovely chap all the way from Turkey called Michael Nagles. I'm not going to say anything else about Michael because he's going to introduce himself, and we are just going to chew the fat about business, PR, and life for the next 40 minutes or so. So please welcome Michael Nagles.
A lovely chap from Turkey. What a unique way to be introduced. That's probably a once in a lifetime introduction there.
So Michael, tell people where you are.
I am on holiday in Turkey. For those of you who know Turkey, I'm in Kusadisi, on the, I think it's essentially on the eastern, no, it's on the western end of Turkey, across the water. If you look out this window to my left, you can see a Greek island called Samos, and further over that way is Athens. Just enjoying some proper hot sunny weather for a few days.
Well, I have to say we're enjoying proper hot sunny weather too.
Yeah, it's always the way, isn't it? When you leave, anytime you leave the UK, the weather in the UK seems to improve. I've never understood it.
Maybe it's the Michael factor.
Yeah.
Michael, tell people what you do. What are you doing right now in terms of your business? Just share that information, please.
Yeah, thanks for that. I am the founder of a company called Kickstart SEO Limited. As the name might imply, we do search engine optimization for small businesses. We are a small scale operation with a large reach in the type of services that we can provide. We keep a small client base on purpose. We don't want to work with Tesco or anybody like that. We want to work with businesses like those that will be in your audience today, small businesses trying to get found on the internet.
So have you always done that, Michael? Give us a bit of your backstory.
The SEO thing I've done alongside other online marketing businesses and projects that I've done for about 30 years now. I built my first website in 1995. I worked on the sales and marketing team for a company in the early days of the internet, and I was involved in a project designing the website for that business. Nobody really knew what we were doing. There was no training. There was no background. It was all so new. But this company did realize that they needed a web presence. It was obvious what was coming in the advent of the internet. And so I kind of got volunteered to be a part of this project. It wasn't really anything I had any education for, although I had a background in computers and technology. I was at that time a salesman for the company. And so I just got invited to contribute to this project. And what we thought was going to be a 6-week project turned out to be a 6-month project. Took a lot longer than we thought it would, but also was a great learning experience. And I just kind of got an affinity for it. I got the bug for it. I got hooked on it. Over 30 years from 95 to now, have just kind of worked in different aspects of that. So continue to go back into sales and marketing, and did general management of some operations for a while as I grew in my own career. But over the years, kept migrating back towards wanting to be involved in that. And any company I worked for, if there was the opportunity to work on the web side of the marketing or sales, that's where I wanted to be. Sometimes forcing my way into those environments because that's really what I wanted to do. While at the same time needing to do the sales and marketing jobs to pay the mortgage and feed the children and like that. In 2004, I left a company I'd been working for and went to work for a true technology company in America, a company called Freight Quote. And what Freight Quote did is, in America, we use a lot of HGVs to move products around the country. If you've ever been on holiday there, you see thousands of these big trucks on the road. And the company that I worked for a while sold the excess space on those vehicles. So a big company like a Tesco, an American version of a Tesco, will fill those trucks up with their freight that they move from location to location. The company that I worked for sold the extra space, that room for one pallet, and so they sold it to a small business who only had one pallet that they needed to get from Texas to Minnesota, and we helped broker that. And I worked in the software side of that, not so much in development, but more in training, teaching customers how to use the software, getting people into the software, selling the software, access software as a service in those, it kind of in an early stage at that point. And that was when I properly got into the technology side of online marketing, web marketing. Over those early years, I had continued to build websites and do stuff with different companies, but that's when it became a full-time vocation.
Michael, tell me,
Yeah.
what is it you like about the digital world? Why is it that it's so attractive to you?
It's always changing. It's always new. It doesn't stagnate or grow old. There is always a new technology, always a new method, always a new browser, always a new web design style. All of that stuff has constantly been evolving over the years. And of course, in the past 15 years, going back to 2008 or so, when I first hung out a shingle for my own business, um, it is working with small businesses. That's what draws me to it, because you see so many people who, everybody knows they need a website, everybody knows they need a web presence, and you have those different economies of scale where some people they feel like they have to do it on their own, but they don't necessarily have the skill set to do it on their own, and they're just struggling because they just want to grow a business. They've got a small business idea that they want to maximize the value of and bring the customers in and sell it, and the web is where we sell stuff now. And they can't always afford somebody to do all the work for them, and so they struggle to do it themselves, and they end up spending more money struggling to do it themselves than if they would just find someone to help them and hire the right size company to help them as well.
So if we talk about Kickstart SEO, your company now,
Yeah.
I always describe PR as a toolbox with lots of tools in. I happen to specialize in one tool, which is media relations. You specialize in another one, which is SEO. So let's go back to basics. What is it and how does that work today? Because today I think is different than it would have been 5 years ago. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, SEO, search engine optimization, from my point of view, the perspective of the way I help customers, because SEO is a lot of different things. And there are a lot of moving pieces to it. But it is essentially engineering your website in a way that your website talks to Google in a language that Google, we use Google because Google's the catch-all for search engines. Anytime I say Google, that could easily be Bing, Yahoo, any other, DuckDuckGo, any other search engine that you want to put in that void. We use Google because Google's a verb. And so it is engineering your website so that your website feeds Google the information it's looking for. And that's the biggest part of the pie. And of course, it's also there's things with backlinks, social media juice, and content and all of that. But essentially, SEO is making your website talk to Google.
And how do you know what Google or any search engine wants?
Well, the great thing about Google, specifically Google, is they tell us what they want. A lot of SEO people, I mean, they're, as with any industry, I mean, this could be said about cheeseburger makers. Some of them don't always have customers' best interest at mind, and some of them try to make it seem more complicated than it is. And there's a lot of smoke and mirrors in the way that SEO works. But at the end of the day, Google has been good and really been good for about 20 years of just telling you what they're looking for. They provide a lot of tools and a lot of information. Now, it's very consuming to follow all of that stuff, which is why having someone like me or any other SEO company to do it for you comes into play. But Google tells you what they're looking for. They tell you what their expectations are. They tell you what's more important. When the trends change, Google tells you what the new trend is. Sometimes you have to interpret that, and that comes with a little bit of skill. But at the end of the day, it's not rocket science. It is just knowing what the latest guidance is from the search engines as to what they're looking for. And again, Google kind of leads the way. The other search engines kind of follow Google's lead because they've got the biggest part of the marketplace.
Well, to give me then, could you, and I know I'm putting you on the spot here, maybe
That's
give
okay.
us 3 generic tips for small business or micro business owners, 3 generic tips as to how search engines are behaving today, which might add value for all of us. I know you can't be specific because we run such a huge variety of businesses, but if you could give us like 3 generic tips, that would be helpful.
Well, we've all heard the phrase that content is king. And that is absolutely true. The written content on your website is essentially important to your website because it's what Google reads to determine what your website's about. And although content is king, think about the king himself, that royal, the sovereign. They don't rule alone. They've got a staff. They've got people who help them. And the online version of that staff and that royal household, as it were, is things like title tags. And I'll give a little more information behind it, but like title tags, alt image tags, page descriptions, the way you structure your blog titles, things like that. And so content is king, but it's the way you support the king that gets you found on Google. And so each page has to have a title that has got keywords in it and is written properly, and when I say written properly, it's not keyword stuffing, it's not over optimized, which can work as much against you as under optimized can. It's writing page descriptions that tell people who are Googling a subject or a product what your page is about. It's optimizing your images so that people who have accessibility issues and are using accessibility software can see what those images are about if they can't really see the image itself. Having content that can be used with a sight reader where people who have accessibility issues, it will read the content to them. um, page mapping, your sitemap, the technical issues, page load speed, how quickly your website loads. And the reason all of those things are important comes down to one thing, and that is the purpose of Google. And the purpose of Google, the reason, for Google, the Google customer is that person who searches for something on Google. So when I Google golf courses in Turkey, which is what my my history is full of right now. When I search for golf courses in Turkey, Google's job is to return to me the most relevant answers to that search string. And so your website needs to be set up and optimized in a way that will feed Google that information, so that if I search for golf courses in Turkey, it drives me to you.
Right, I think I've got that. We've got a question. Chris has asked,
Oh,
how often should we revisit our SEO as a company?
kind of depends on how often you add new content. If your website is largely static, which it shouldn't be, a website should be a living, breathing part of your business. But it depends on how often you add new content. So if your website is there and it's got content, and you go in and you go through and check everything and rewrite, and not to oversimplify, but if you fix all the SEO issues you've got, that'll give you a boost in the search engines. But then you should be adding new content. You should be keeping your website relevant. You should be adding more and more and more content. If you and I do the exact same thing, if I make cheeseburgers and you make cheeseburgers, and my website has 30 blogs about cheeseburgers and your website has 6 blogs about cheeseburgers, I'm going to be able to outperform you if I've set up those blogs correctly. And so it is a process over time. There are businesses who have a 5-page website, and once it's optimized, it's optimized. And unless Google changes their what we call the algorithm, which is the way they crawl websites and the way they rank them, even though you should always be adding new content, if your business style and your plan for your website doesn't involve changing your content, once it's done, it's done. The customers I tend to work with, I don't really work with customers who have static websites, because in all honesty, there's not much I can do to help them. Once their website is optimized, it's optimized and we're done. The customers I work with are the customers whose websites are constantly evolving. And they're going to add new content. They're going to write new blogs. They're going to introduce new products. Their business will change. Everybody's business kind of changes a little bit over time, and you want to constantly be updating your website to reflect that. So you should revisit your SEO as often as you add new content and re-envision your website.
So, Michael, if I'm uploading a blog to my website every week, I talk about a range of issues. Some will be PR, but it might be how much I love my dog. Should I be doing another step of SEO in that blog to make it work? Should I be doing that?
Yeah, there's a few things you can do. If you upload a blog article, you want to actually optimize that article. And what I mean by optimize it is structure the headings. Nobody wants to see a wall of text. The best blog posts and the most engaging blog posts are broken down into little bite-sized sections, as it were. And so each of one of those bite-sized sections will have a heading, and the heading tells you what that next section is about. So if you think about it in a hierarchy, every blog has a title: how to make the best cheeseburger. Becoming fixated on cheeseburgers, much to my own concern. But every blog has a title. So how to make the best cheeseburger might be my title. And then in that, I might break it down into sections, and I might have a section that talks about the bun. choosing the bun. Do you want a sesame seed bun? Do you want a poppy seed bun? Do you just want to put it on bread? Are you trying to save on carbs? Maybe you don't want a bun at all. So I'll have a section. You'd have a section on buns. Then you're going to talk about the cheese. What kind of cheese do you like? Do you like cheddar cheese? Do you like blue cheese? Do you like, the pungent cheese? And so you might have a section on cheese. So you're going to break all of that down. So now you've got your blog post and you've got all your different sections and you tell your story. Then the last thing you want to have in that blog post is a call to action. What is the whole point of you want somebody to do something off the back of that. It might be that you want them to download your cheeseburger recipe booklet. Click here to download our recipe booklet. Click here to download or click here to add yourself to our mailing list, and we'll send you a cheeseburger recipe every week for the rest of your life. Click here to find all the locations for our cheeseburger restaurants. You follow me. So you want to have a clear call to action. Then the other thing that you want to do, once you get that article on there, is if you want Google to index it, you've got to have a way of helping Google find that. And so you might use tools like Google Search Console is the best one. There was a time that was called Google Webmaster Tools because it was so essential to helping people get content found, but also linking to that from within other articles, because Google is indexing your website. And when they index your website, what we call crawling your website, you want to make it easy for Google to find that newest blog post. And so you might embed links in other cheeseburger articles. Backlinks. We often talk about backlinks. You and I have had a couple of conversations recently about the value of backlinks. And so find reputable other websites that promote cheeseburgers as well. So maybe you find a company that does cheeseburger or burger buns, and you get them to backlink to your article because your article has got content about choosing the best bun. And so those are great high value backlinks. And so it's just following through with all of those steps. What happened? Content writers have done a really good job of convincing people that content is king, and it is, as I said earlier. But it's how you structure that content that really gives you a strong kingdom, as it were.
I think that's really useful. Chris has asked another question, so we've obviously piqued his interest. How do you make images, video, audio SEO friendly or help us to be found? So how do you do that?
Again, you can optimize you can really drill down right to each one of those little elements. So I talked a little while ago about images and putting alt text tags. So what alt text is it's basically a little description of what the image is. So on your website, you'll have your logo. And so if it's Fiona's website, it's going to say Scott Media logo. That would be an alt image tag so that it can be read. And you can do the same thing with video, depending on how you have your video in your website. The best way to have video in your website is through a third party like Vimeo or YouTube. You put your video on their website and then you embed it in your website. Well, each of those websites, Vimeo, YouTube, and there are others, let you optimize the video through their platform to help tell people what that video is. If you have a raw video on your website, it's kind of, people are doing that less and less because it takes up a lot of space and bandwidth, and it's not the best way to do it. But if you have the video actually on your website and it downloads, you can optimize that bit of video, embed code in it so that it works. Same thing with audio. Your podcasts, for instance, I don't know where all you host them, but you can optimize those podcasts. And again, what you're trying to do, and we've all seen these search engine results. When you go on Google and you search for business advice podcasts, you want this to come up because your guests are offering business advice in a podcast format. And so you can embed and structure those videos, snippets, audio, and images so that they feed that information back to the search engines.
And Michael, I want to move on now to talk to you. We've talked about PR, my bit, which is media outreach, really, and trying to give stories to the media when they want them about a range of business owners and experts. How do you see that fits into your world, PR?
Well, PR backlinks are right now are probably about the most valuable backlinks you can get. And so I know you know this, but if your listeners don't know this, picture a blog post that you're reading on a high value website, maybe the BBC's website. You're reading a post on there, and it talks about it talks about these great cheeseburgers that you can buy in Bedfordshire, and it has a link back to it because the BBC has such a reputation. A link from the BBC's website back to your website carries a lot of what we sometimes call link juice, which is just power. It's just power. There are good links and bad links. You can plant links anywhere. People spend a lot of time with directories where they'll go into directories and just plant a link. And those do help you get found. Google does follow them unless the host of the link blocks it from being followed. But Google does follow them. But Google doesn't really pay much attention. They see it as a signal and they take note of it, but it's not really high value. Getting your name into a newspaper article or a blog article or a big website that's years and years old and has lots of reputation already built up because it's got such great content written on it, and you get a link off of the back of that, that raises your domain authority, I guess is the best way to put it. So domain authority is a measurement of the reputation of your website. And getting that PR backlink is invaluable. And it's part of it is because you can't generally buy them. You have to earn them by having a good reputation.
Backlinks come up quite a lot in my world,
yeah,
Michael, and I always say to clients, if you get a backlink from any provider of news or any credible source, say thank you, but don't expect it. The amount of times I've had techie companies who are working with clients of mine who try and get the client to persuade me to go back to every journalist I've ever dealt with and ask for a backlink on the website, say the Daily Mail, or it might be the Sun. I've had someone in the Sun this week, or it could be even your local paper, because they're usually still high domain authority sites. And I always explain that you can't do that. And increasingly the media are charging for backlinks because they recognize the value of that. You know, have you come across that, of companies trying to persuade people to go back and add backlinks to things that are backdated?
Yeah, and Google has even started asking that those paid for backlinks be tagged. There's a way that you can code a backlink as no follow or sponsored are two of the most common. And Google is actually starting to say that they want to know if a link has been paid for by putting that sponsored backlink tag on it. And that's not something that most of your viewers will have to worry about. It's not something most website owners would have to worry about. But people get excited when they plant links in different places. What they don't often realize is a lot of those links are being tagged as what's called no follow, which is where the website owner is telling Google, here's a link, but we don't want it attributed back to us. Don't follow it. And Google decides whether or not they want to follow it. They'll still follow it as an indicator that a website or a bit of content exists, but the way that they value it in your ranking strategy or your backlink strategy is a little bit different. And Google's going through a change of heart right now, because backlinks have been a big subject for a long time, but they're going through a change of heart now as to how they view backlinks. And even on their own website, I spoke earlier that they offer a lot of guidance to web designers and SEOs. They used to say on their website that backlinks are a very important part of any SEO strategy. And about 8 weeks ago, they removed the word very from that guidance. And now it just says backlinks are an important part of any SEO strategy. And in SEO circles, it's expected that even the backlinks are going to be downgraded even further. Some of that goes to the advent of AI, something called search generated. It's hard to get your tongue around. It's hard for me to get my tongue around. Search generative experience, which is something you'll hear more and more about as we get into next year, because it's the way that Google will use AI to generate search results, and it'll have a big effect on a lot of websites, not necessarily small businesses, but it's websites with a large number of backlinks and a lot of deep, rich content will get caught up in this new way of displaying search engine results on Google.
I noticed I blog on a platform called Medium, which you're probably aware of, and I noticed recently they sent out a note to say they were going to start crawling all of their content for all of their bloggers to make sure that none of the blogs were AI generated. Now, I don't use AI. I'll use it for ideas, but I don't use it to write content. But I do think that's going to be a thing that we're going to see more and more of in the future, of content being tested.
That's interesting that they've said that. It shows kind of a short, and this I may get myself in hot water for this, but so what I'm about to say is purely an opinion based on education. AI is a part of content creation that is not going to go away. And I think it's a little short-sighted if they're going to start blocking AI-generated content. What Google says is that they are quite happy to have you use AI to generate content. They just want to make sure that you humanize that content. And that is the most important part of where we are, because AI is, as I said, it's not going to go away and it's going to continue to evolve. And it is a great tool, but you cannot take people out of that mix. If you just put in a few prompts into ChatGPT or Jasper or any of these AI generators, if you just put in a few prompts and you generate a post, and you take that post and you copy it, paste it into your blog, and go on your merry way, that's the wrong way to do it. You need to go through that content that's generated and add your own personal experience, your own insight into that. AI is a great way to generate content. It's a great way to get past writer's block. I tend to use AI. I'll take 5 or 6 bullet points, and if I know what I want to say, I'll put 5 or 6 bullet points in, and let AI generate the outline, and then I'll take that outline and use it to develop my written content. So AI plays a part. If there's no other reason for your viewers to believe that AI is a valid, useful, and appropriate tool for generating content, it's the fact that Google is developing an AI tool.
Yeah, so, I went to a talk by Google last month, and I find it very interesting. I think these things always find their balance, and that we fear them too much. So I'm not against it at all. I mean, in my sector, particularly with writers, there's a lot of fear about it, deep fake and things like that. But I think over time, we'll get pretty savvy to that. I've had some clients that have sometimes sent me information for a press release, and I can spot it a mile off because it doesn't sound like them.
No, it doesn't sound natural. And that's what I meant. That's what I meant when I said humanize it. Take that content and improve on it. Even if it's as simple as running it through a tool like Grammarly, and going back and adding real world experiences. And also the fact that the content on your website should be content that's relevant to your business and is content that you know something about. Because if you own that business, you know what you have the subject matter in hand for that business. And so read that content and make sure that it passes the test. That's going to represent your business. Where people, like I said, are going wrong is they're using the boilerplate AI content that ChatGPT might create, which is often wrong on some subjects.
Yeah, it is. It is. But I wanted to talk to you, Michael. We've talked about this. Do you think there'll come a moment where SEO can be used to bring journalists' wishes or their asks, if you like, when they're looking for something, to bring that to people, to your clients, to my clients, where SEO could be used to bring journalist requests to you?
Well, yeah, we're working on something right now. It's been a bit problematic, but it's something that we're intent on. We believe that journalist PR, and you'll know, some of your viewers will know about an organization called Help a Reporter Out, and HARO, HARO. And what HARO does is it looks for people to contribute to these blog posts. And I believe that the PR backlinks are such a valuable part, especially with Google changing its whole ecosystem around backlinks. I think these journalist requests are the most valuable part of a backlinking strategy, because they're credible, and Google sees them as credible. Search engines see them as credible. And so having a website that will answer a reporter's question, having your blog content that educates and gives those frequently asked questions a place to reside, is a great way to build backlinks and to build reputation. It's all about reputation. Google wants to serve up, if there are 5 million websites telling you how to make a great cheeseburger, when I Google give me a great cheeseburger recipe, Google wants to give me the best. And that is your content that feeds that.
I'm quite excited by what you're trying to do, because I've long said to clients or anyone I'm training, don't send press releases, particularly to national or international journalists, because it's going to be largely irrelevant to them. But getting journalists to tell you what they're looking for when they're looking for it is really important. So I subscribe to a ton of databases where there are journalists popping into my inbox every day saying, I'm looking for this and I'm looking for that. And it's a much more effective way of engaging with the press. And I think what you're describing will feed into that. And it's something that people like me can use for our clients, or clients probably can use themselves if they want to do their own media outreach. That's what excites me about it.
Well, and there needs to be a certain, I hate to use buzzwords, I try to avoid them, but synergy. You need to have a little synergy between these journalist requests and your website. And that's where someone like Fiona Scott comes in handy, to finesse the way you answer those questions from the journalists. Because the tendency with small businesses is that they want to sell. They want to sell their product. And so if a journalist is looking for information for an article about cheeseburgers, if I start trying to sell them my cheeseburger recipes, but if you provide answers, if the website provides the answers in a reputable way that the journalist can refer back to and use the website as a source, or even say something, Michael Nagles has these greatest cheeseburger recipes ever. You can find more on his website. And I don't have this website, by the way. You can find more on his website, great cheeseburger recipes. That backlink, great cheeseburgerrecipes.co.uk, is what the website user is after. But what the journalist is after is an answer to a question.
That's right.
Something they can put in their article to justify or reinforce the value of the article. And you got to find that little bit of synergy to where I can give you something in exchange for you giving me something.
Yeah. Yeah, and absolutely is that, because even when I get those requests in, or I direct someone who doesn't want my services on a retained basis, but they want to access those requests themselves, often how they respond is incorrect, because
Yeah.
what they don't do is really basic. They don't follow the brief. So they immediately goes into hard sales language. You're quite right. Or they provide 3,000 words that are totally irrelevant to what they've been asked for.
I've seen people send Harrow, a journalist that they got a link through Harrow, or a journalist request through Harrow, send them links to a blog and just say, yeah, I've got the answer to that question. Here's my link to my blog. And now the journalist has to go read the blog.
Yeah.
And so journalists, if you respond to those, and I'm telling you how to suck eggs, I think, but if you respond to those in a way that makes the journalist's life better, that's what most of us are looking for on a given day.
Yeah, I try to explain to people how journalists work. Most journalists are freelance, just like us, and they need to make a buck quickly and to deadlines. So if you're asking them, and the reason they put these requests out is for speed. That, the first thing they'll do before they put that request out is go to their phone and see if they know someone who can answer that question. That's the first thing they'll do. The second thing they'll do is put a request out via Google or whatever. And that's a signal to someone they need it quickly. So if you then give them extra steps to do, they just aren't going to do it. They're going to go to the next guy or gal who provides exactly what they want. And it doesn't matter if their business is bigger, smaller, better, or worse than yours. You've met that need.
And especially if you work in a niche industry, if it's something specific. You and I have a common friend, Stephen Thomas, who is a networking, I don't know what to call him, networking mastermind. That's probably not the right way to say it, but
he's certainly a master of it. Yeah.
Well, Stephen wrote the book on networking. He wrote Networking for Dummies, Business Networking for Dummies. So he wrote the book on networking. But that's a real niche. There's not a lot of people that teach. There are a lot of people that own networking organizations and run networking groups and provide networking opportunities. But Stephen teaches you how to master it. And so if you think about somebody like Stephen, that's a valuable source for a journalist to get information from. And so for other businesses like accounting, be the valued source for accounting, be the valued source for financial management, be the valued source for human resources, be the valued source for SEO. Whatever your niche is, be an asset to people and they'll reward you for that. If you can do something, what was it Dale Carnegie said? Help other people. If you really want to grow your
Michael, I don't know.
Yeah, I've lost the plot on that quote. But if you help other people grow their business, your business will grow.
Yeah.
Is essentially what he was saying.
There is one question I have to ask you that I know people who are watching right now or who watch later will be thinking, Fiona hasn't asked Michael where he came from and where he lives now and how he got here. I need to ask you that, because you mentioned Bedfordshire, but you clearly didn't probably originally come from Bedfordshire. So give us a bit of your geography.
It's a long and sordid story that goes back 40 years. Part of the reason we're in Turkey this week is my wife and I are celebrating our 39th anniversary, which is, and also 40 years of actually knowing each other. So we knew each other for a year before we got married. I'm almost a gypsy anymore. And the older I get and the further I get from my roots, the more people saying, where are you from, gets complicated, because where I'm from, I haven't lived in 25 years. My family is from the South. We spent a lot of time in places like Texas and Georgia. Tennessee and Georgia when I was growing up. We spent a great deal of time in the Midwest in Kansas City. My wife and I met in Germany. I lived in Germany for 7 years after we got married. I was in the American Army for 10 years and moved all over the place. I was in the business world, and the companies I worked for moved me a few times. More and more, the place I'm from is actually Bedfordshire, because that's about to become the place I've lived the longest out of my nearly 60 years. Um, if I win the lottery tomorrow and we get the money to buy a second house somewhere, that second house in America would probably be in Texas, and probably out in the Texas Hill Country, because that's the place of all the places I've lived and grown up and been raised. Texas is a place we call home, but we have a real affinity for Kansas City as well. I've got family in Kansas City, and I spent a lot of my childhood in Kansas City. My mom liked to move around, and then when I grew up, I moved around, and then I married, and we moved around. And like I said, we're not far off Bedfordshire being where I'm from, because that'll end up being the place I've lived the longest now that we've kind of settled in.
I don't know, that voice of yours just says the same to me. But interestingly, only a couple of weeks ago, I interviewed a couple that developed a connection with Wiltshire, where I live. And they come from a place in Texas, which I just love the name of it. Dripping Springs, it's called.
Oh, I know Dripping Springs well. I've spent a lot of time in Dripping Springs. It's in, a moment ago, I mentioned the Texas Hill Country, and Dripping Springs is in the Texas Hill Country. I know it very well. It's kind of sandwiched between San Antonio and Austin, in just a really beautiful part of Texas, and great culture, great food, great atmosphere.
They have a ranch there called Camp Lucy, I think it's called. Look it up. Anyway,
I will look it up.
I'm desperate. I'm desperate to actually find an excuse for them to have to take me out to Dripping Springs, just so I can just have a sign, me by a sign that says Dripping Springs.
Yeah, Dripping Springs is up the hill, essentially, from a town called Wimberley, Texas, which is a great place to go. And what we used to do is we would take these big tractor tires, inner tubes, the rubber inner tube from a tractor tire, fill it up with air, put it in the river at Dripping Springs, and you basically just sit in this inner tube and float down the river.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, and you do it on a day when it would be 45 degrees centigrade, 100 degrees Fahrenheit. You'd get a cooler and fill it with ice and beer, because it was styrofoam and air would float, and you just tie the cooler. Oh, you're taking me back. I was
going to say, I didn't expect to be talking about that.
I was attacked by a turkey. Yeah, I was attacked by a turkey in Dripping Springs. Just come back to me. Yes, a turkey literally chased me down in Dripping Springs.
We've gone full circle, Michael, from turkey to turkey. I hope you realise that.
Hey, see, well done. That's a masterful interviewer that can.
Yeah, that is absolutely. I mean, it wasn't a pure coincidence at all.
That is the best segue I've ever been involved.
Yeah. Right, we're going to end now. Thank you, Michael. Thank you so much. Just let anyone who's listening to this or watching this on Catch Up, how can they find you?
Kickstartseo.co.uk is our website. My name is Michael Nagles. It's there on the screen. I'm easy to find. I'm not a social media maven, but I am on social media. If you look for me on Facebook or LinkedIn, you'll find me there. I'm happy to connect with anybody. You can find me. You can find me if you look for me. I'm out there, but through my website or Michael at kickstartseo.co.uk is my email address. Just send me an email and say, hey, I saw you on Fiona's show and I've got a question. So brilliant. I am happy to give free advice.
Brilliant.
There used to be a saying that people had to pay me to shut up, but that's...
So if you ring Michael for free advice, you're going to be having a chat about all sorts of things in the end.
We may, as you've seen from this interview, we may wander a little bit.
That's all right. I'm a wanderer. Not all who wander are lost.
That's right. That's right.
That's right. Michael, thank you very much indeed. Thank you so much.
It has been my pleasure. It's good to see you. Thanks for
And you
spending time
too.
with me today.
Oh, no, thank you for giving your time up on your holiday. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
And thank you to all of you who are watching now, who are watching later. Come and join me next month. I'll tell you who the guest is going to be quite soon. Keep an eye on all my socials. And I hope you've enjoyed today's show. I hope you've got some hints and tips and you've taken some notes. You know how to contact Michael if you need to, or contact me if you've got any questions about PR. Thanks so much. And please join me next time.